co-chairperson with Parkridge Elks Drug Awareness Committee. Also along with Garen. There he is, he's in the back. He's one of our new members, and he is a retired parole officer with the New Jersey Department of Corrections. So he's been around us a lot. So he's going to be very helpful to us. The Walkout on Drugs is a National Elks program. Its purpose is to help bring awareness of the devastating effects of drugs, particularly opioids, and that they're having on our families, our friends, and in our communities. Speaking to you today, you will hear from the people who have firsthand knowledge of the seriousness of this epidemic on a daily basis. You will hear from those working to help educate our children and to change laws, from families that have lost loved ones to 2 recovered addicts. We also will give you information about raising resilient children, and also our Elks National Peer Program, where we take high school students to a weekend conference every February. The monies raised today will allow us to send 4 of those students from our local Boro high schools to the Elks Peer Leadership Weekend next February. The purpose of this program is to give these kids the tools to make healthy and smart decisions for themselves, and then to help others and to pass on to their peers. The students are our next generation of leaders. We want them to have all the tools they need to succeed. We also support the Hoving Home in Garrison for Women and the Oxford House in New Jersey to help addicts rebuild their shattered lives. If everyone could please stand, we'll start with our prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, as we gather here today for this drug awareness program, we ask that you be in our midst. Help us to learn and understand what is going on in our community and with our neighbors. Help us to do our part, to have healthy discussions and not judge, but to love, to be kind, and helpful to one another, especially those in need and affected by this epidemic. In your name, amen. Amen. If everyone could stay standing, I'm going to introduce our exalted ruler, Ken Reynolds, for the Pledge of Allegiance.
You all please join me in reciting our pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks. Please proceed.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ken Reynolds. I am the exalted ruler of the Parkridge Lodge, and I'd like to welcome you all here today on this extremely important, crucial epidemic of what's going on throughout the country. And this is our way of kind of fighting back against it. Since I last was up here a year ago, just my own personal experience, I have 3 children, and out of the 4 of us, 3 of us in the past 12 months have been affected by opioids, by friends, significant other, and unfortunately who passed away December 23rd. And it's just, you're going to hear the stories, and no one's immune to it, no community. Doesn't matter whether it's, you know, the poverty-stricken community to where we're all fortunate enough to, most of us, to come from in Bergen County, and no one's immune to it. So I just would like to stress that, how important this is. And I'm so happy to see so many of us came out today. And I hope if we get to touch one person out of all these stories, I mean, there's a wealth of knowledge that's going to come up here, way more than I know. And so with that, I'd like to hand it back to Cheryl, and I hope everybody has a successful day.
Okay, our first speaker, our guest speaker, will be Holly Chapizzi. She's our Assemblywoman.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for being here. In addition to being a member of the Elks, I'm here because this is something near and dear to my heart, as I'm sure it is to everybody sitting here today. People assume, they look at me, they look at my family, they look at where I came from, and ordinarily people don't think drug addiction, alcoholism, these things affect everybody, regardless of who they are, where they came from, what your educational level is, what your perceived family background is. As a teenager, I was one of those kids who, straight A student, very shy, didn't have a lot of friends, was embarrassed public speaking, and kind of in a very sheltered existence, and didn't realize that there was addiction in my own family. And when I was about 15, my parents had an awful divorce, and I got left kind of raising my brother and sister and dealing with a parent who was struggling with mental health and addiction issues. As a result of not having coping strategies myself, not understanding what was going on, and having no idea who I could speak with, I went from that straight A student to almost failing out of high school. I was one of those kids that really walked a fine line. I did a lot of stuff to hurt myself. I did a lot of stuff to numb the pain. And I'm very lucky to be standing before you today and having got through and out of it alive. A lot of kids who I did stuff with at that time were not so lucky and continue to battle their demons all these years later. For me, my wake-up call was I almost died at 17 in a car accident. And I looked at it as a second chance at life and really reflected on what I was doing to myself, the opportunities that I was giving up as a result, and managed to go from that kid who was straight A, almost failing out, turning myself around, and graduated from college with high honors and worked around the world, and have really been committed since to try to set a better example for my own children, for other people, and telling my story and other stories as well. I went through, I came out, I'm an attorney. I started working as a public defender in Oakland, right around the time that the opioid crisis started hitting our area. In a 2-year period, I lost 6 people I was representing. 6. One of which was a high school friend of mine who had never gotten his life together. And he had finally come to me a couple of months prior and said, Holly, I'm straight, I'm sober, I have all of these arrests and small things in different communities, can you help me? I want to get my life back on track. So I went out and I started helping him get his life back together. Supportive family, brother is a teacher at Ramsey High School, you know, close-knit. And I'm on a soccer field with my daughter, Memorial Weekend, a couple of years back, and I get a phone call from a friend. Did you hear he died? And he had one slip up on his road to recovery. His girlfriend at the time had an ankle bracelet on and was on house arrest and didn't realize that he had died in the bed next to her. And I remember speaking with his mom, his brother, and they just couldn't even comprehend that he was gone because he was doing so well. And that's what we see with a lot of these stories, is right when we think that our loved one is going to be okay, they'll have a slip back. And the current statistics in New Jersey are shocking. In 2018 alone, 3,163 people died of drug overdoses. To put that number in perspective, that's more than the entire population of the town of Saddle River. It's more than the entire student body at St. Peter's University. It's more than the number of people killed by the flu, homicides, car accidents, and suicides in all of 2016 and 2017. It's more than all gun homicides in the state of New Jersey combined in the entire past decade. We have to do better. We have to provide the resources and help that people need to fight the battle of addiction. We have to continue stopping the stigma associated with getting help. We have to speak openly and honestly amongst ourselves as well as to our children to stop this epidemic. Part of that is providing better teaching tools to our children regarding how to resist the temptation to go down the path. Another big thing is teaching our doctors about overprescribing pharmaceuticals. The number of people who have become addicted to opioids in the past decade in New Jersey is over 70% based upon initially legally prescribed drugs. Because of the history of addiction in my own family, my teenage daughter had major surgery back in November. Her kidney was blocked and shutting down. And one of my biggest fears and concerns was pain management and making sure that she did not inadvertently become hooked on substances that I've seen so many others become hooked on. I have a member of my household, a dear member of my family, who had 20 years of sobriety, prided himself on his sobriety. It was so near and dear to him. He himself had surgery. Doctor prescribed opioids. It became a 7-year struggle, going back and forth through sobriety, which culminated in him falling totally off the wagon, drinking, taking prescription drugs, and almost getting into a major car accident with all of us in the car. And took quite a few years to get himself back to where he wanted to be, all because the doctor prescribed medications to him, even after sitting down and explaining numerous times the history of addiction in the household. So, what do we as parents, what do we as community leaders, what do we as people who want to stop this do? One, we have to become our own patient advocates. Whether or not it's going in and getting a tooth fixed, whether or not it's major surgery like my daughter had, whether or not it's having a family member who is struggling emotionally or with an anxiety disorder or with something traumatic that may have transpired. How do we ensure that they're getting the care that they need without becoming addicted to the substances that numb the pain? First thing is communication. We must communicate with our doctors, our medical professionals. Everybody lies to their doctors. Nobody tells them the full story. Nobody wants to admit, everything that's going on in their lives, their households. By nature, we're pretty private people, but it's incumbent upon us to have those open, honest dialogues. If your doctor does not know that you have 3 aunts and uncles who should be in AA and aren't, and that you have 2 cousins and a family member, you must talk to them about that stuff before you're ever prescribed any sort of medication, and be able to make informed decisions from there. As a parent, you got to start talking to your kids young. I have a 15-year-old and I have a 7-year-old. We have these conversations constantly. I've been talking to my daughter about addiction since she was about 4 years old. And kids are going to do dumb things. I mean, my husband and I were away a year ago. Our teenage daughter decided to try to throw a party at our house. It lasted a whole 10 minutes. And we used it as a teaching experience. Her grounding was awesome. A lot of parents now want to do this. But me being a lawyer, me being who I am in the community, she had self-grounded herself to try to get ahead of it. But over the Christmas break, she was not allowed out until she completed a 1,000-word paper on the perils of underage drinking, the legal ramifications of what could have happened to mom and dad, with real-life case law of current situations, And I made her rewrite it until I deemed that it was an A+. So, as a parent, you have to realize that, your children will mess up, they will do things. But you also have to have that open and honest communication with them, that even when they do mess up, that they still are knowing that they can come and talk to you. And I'm a parent who would much prefer to know that my kid is messing up and be able to sit down and have those conversations than bury my head in the sand like a lot of my friends do. A lot of my friends, it's not my kid, my kid wouldn't do that. So I'm sitting there going, okay, but I know your kid's smoking pot like 4 days a week. And I don't say it, but it's something that we need to get honest with ourselves about what our children are doing. And so, some of the life lessons. We have, as a society, kind of gone a little bit too far. When I was growing up in the 70s, I said we were feral. I mean, we would get on our bikes, we would leave, for 5 hours. There were no cell phones, nobody knew where we were, and just so long as you got home in time for dinner so you didn't get grounded or something worse, you were home for dinner, but nobody knew where you were for that entire period of time. I was like 8. Now, we don't even allow our children to go on a play date. Parents sit there and, we hover over our kids so much that we don't give them the skill sets and the tools of how to be functioning people when life gets hard. And life will always get hard. I don't care how much we attempt to shelter our kids, put them in a bubble. The inherent nature of life is difficulty and adversity and learning the skill sets and the tools to pick yourself up and continue and forge ahead when those things come your way. So how can we teach our kids and the younger generations how to have those tools and skill sets? And one of the things we've got to teach them, it's okay to fail. We all think that our children's going to be the next Derek Jeter, or they're all going to Harvard or Yale. We have parents paying $500,000 to bribe people to get their kids into colleges. That's what we as a society have turned into. Now, we've got to realize we all have limitations. We may fail. Life is about failing. Life is about not making those same mistakes, learning to pick yourself up and move forward. We must teach our children how to do that. Life is not about just participation and merely showing up. It's difficult, and not everybody is always going to win. We have to teach pathways towards emotional maturity. Our kids are so accustomed to being behind a screen all day, every day, that they don't know how to interact with one another when life actually comes their way. Take 10 minutes out every day. We all have the most hectic, crazy lives. I work a minimum of 2 full-time jobs, sit on boards, have 2 kids. Half the time I'm just happy that my clothes aren't inside out and that I've remembered to put every article of clothing on. It's tough, you juggle, you try to figure it out. Take 10 minutes out every day and speak to your children. Really speak to them. Speak to your family members. Try to understand if somebody is struggling beforehand. And if they are, don't be embarrassed to get them help. Some of the other things that, just in being a parent and speaking to others and being a legislator, we have legislation constantly about how we must deal with the opioid crisis. And what do? And we're passing bills, we're making it more difficult to access this stuff, but a lot of people are already hooked. A lot of people don't understand how dangerous it is and think, oh, not me. It couldn't be me. I'm not going to get hooked on this stuff. I'm not a drug addict. I grew up in Park Ridge. Well, we've seen recently suicides. We've seen ODs. We're seeing it in Park Ridge, Rivervale, Saddle River, Upper Saddle River. Every place that I represent, all 23 towns, we have had drug overdoses every year, and fatal drug overdoses. So, tips for parents as well, for your kids. One, don't accommodate every need that they have. Let them learn. Let them understand how to fend for themselves. Avoid eliminating all risks. You know, we want to bubble wrap our kids. We don't let them ride their bike down the street anymore. We don't let them do things that teach them how to take responsibility for themselves. We must get back to finding that happy medium between wanting to keep our children safe at all times and teaching them the life skills to be able to function as adults. We have to teach them how to problem solve. We need to teach them concrete skills of how to navigate through life. And we can't provide all the answers. I read the craziest thing, and granted it's on social media, so I take it with a grain of salt, but the other day there was an article that gave the percentage of parents who actually call their millennial children's work to complain about perceived slights at work for their children who are in their 20s and early 30s. It was about 17% of parents. I would be horrified if my parents ever called an employer of where I worked, one. But two, that's the sort of stuff that we are doing that is not teaching people life skills of how to get through the bad times. So we are here, we are speaking out, we are implementing new policies that ensure mental health is available for those who need it. That is the number one initiative that I'm focusing on right now, is ensuring that we have appropriate treatment for people who need it. I spent two and a half years of my life working on a project as an attorney in Mahwah to be able to provide a drug and alcohol rehabilitation facility in Bergen County for those of us who have family members who need it and need something local. You'd be shocked at the number of people who still don't want those people in my backyard. And when you sit and you explain that not only is it in your backyard, but it's in your own household, they kind of go silent. I had some neighbors who came out with pitchforks. We don't want them. We don't want those drug addicts. We don't want those alcoholics. So I pulled the crime statistics and the drug arrests from the couple of streets that surround it, without embarrassing anybody, including some of the people who got up and said, we don't want this. I found that there were arrests in their own households. I found that their neighbors, their children, in one instance, the guy himself, who had been arrested for drugs. So it's something where we need to start eliminating the stigma. We need to start being able to talk openly. We need to provide the resources, and we've got to stop it before it begins. And today you're going to hear from a lot of people, much more well-versed in this than I, who live it day in and day out professionally. But between my experience as being a public defender, having a family that addiction runs rampant through, dodging the bullet and being able to survive my own childhood and come out on the other side to stand before people and talk about my own experiences. I think that if we continue as a community talking openly, providing tools and resources, and speaking to our kids, hopefully one day I will never have to stand up here and talk to another group about this. So thank you very much. I do have, on behalf of the New Jersey Senate and General Assembly, from myself, Senator Cardinale, and Assemblyman Off, the ceremonial resolution for the Elks, and I'll just read it real briefly. Whereas the Senate and General Assembly of the State of New Jersey are pleased to honor and salute Park Ridge Elks Lodge number 2234, a highly esteemed organization in the Garden State, upon the auspicious occasion of the 3rd Annual Drug Awareness Program on March 30th, 2019. Whereas this praiseworthy event with the theme of Raising Resilient Kids will collect funds to help local families buy beds for addicts who want to get clean and change their lives, and to send 4 high school students to the Elks Annual Peer Leadership Program, which focuses on educating future leaders on how to make healthy decisions and share their knowledge with peers. Whereas the drug awareness program will help increase awareness of our nation's opioid epidemic by featuring speakers who will talk about the traumatic and emotional effects these drugs have on addicts as well as their relatives and friends. Whereas the dedicated volunteers at Park Ridge Elks Lodge number 2234 have demonstrated steadfast commitment to helping their community, veterans, and individuals with special needs, and is now taking on the challenge to help end the opioid crisis that is affecting local families. Whereas the National Elks Drug Awareness Program is the largest volunteer drug initiative in the country, and it takes action against youth drug use by promoting pride, by educating and inspiring children. And it is my honor to be able to present this resolution to the Elks for all the great work that they do. Thank you.
We're going to have a little change in the program, so Chief Madden would like to go next.
Good afternoon. I'd like to first thank Park Ridge Elks and their committee of volunteers for hosting their annual walkout on drugs. I'd also like to thank all the local dignitaries who took time from their busy schedules to attend this event. This year, the focus will be on raising resilient kids. I think it is very important to educate and make the youth of our communities aware of the perils of opioid addiction. Many families have been destroyed by this horrible disease, and it appears to be gaining momentum. The opioid problem in our area and across the nation has reached epidemic proportions. It's great to see an organization like the Elks, who has a history of helping those in need, step up and host an event like this that focuses on resiliency. My department has always been at the forefront of supporting initiatives that help the youth of our community. We just introduced an anti-heroin campaign in our high school titled Not Even Once. It involves officers from my department educating students in the 11th grade about the pitfalls of opioid use and addiction. We feel it's very important to get the message out to as many students as possible. I also feel that the collaboration of police, education officials, elected officials, and community groups like the Elks is vital to combating this epidemic, and hopefully will lead to less of our youth experimenting with this dangerous drug. In closing, any attempt at curtailing this horrible epidemic is a step in the right direction. We need the youth of our community to be armed with the coping skills, confidence, and information required to make good decisions in the future. Again, thank you, Muriel, and your group for hosting this event, and I hope everybody listens very carefully to all of the education and awareness information you received today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I would like to call up Dennis Callow, Bergen County Prosecutor.
You know, I do quite a lot of speaking to groups such as this, and it gives me always a sense of optimism, because I live with the grim statistics of the opioid epidemic every day. Whether I'm in the office or whether I'm home or elsewhere, I have my trusty cell phone with me, and I get emails constantly, almost in real time, of the overdoses that happen in our county. And it's depressing. But when I come to speak to groups like this and I see people assembled who are committed to learning about the epidemic and are committed to addressing it, it gives me a real sense of optimism that maybe we can make some progress in this area. Last year, when I addressed this group, I gave you a sense of the statistics that are out there on the epidemic. You heard from Assemblyperson Shapezi that last year we had over 3,000 drug overdose deaths throughout the state. Most of them opioid related, probably close to 90% of them. In 2018, here in Bergen County, we had 585 drug overdoses, 144 of them fatalities. So far in 2019, up to today, we've had 146 overdoses, 28 fatalities just in Bergen County. Across the state, 509 fatalities. But as I often say to groups like this, there are the statistics behind the statistics that we don't know about, right? Because these are the statistics where law enforcement is involved in reviving a person with Narcan or finding a person who's died from an overdose. We don't have the statistics where a person goes into the emergency room or is taken by a friend to the emergency room and they're revived by Narcan. We don't have those statistics. We don't have the statistics where family members who are now forced to have Narcan in their homes because their children are addicted, or their spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend is addicted. We don't have the statistics of those revivals. We only have the official statistics. What's driving the overdoses? What's driving the deaths? Surely heroin, but even more than heroin, the synthetic opioid fentanyl. How about these statistics? In 2015, 7% of the heroin that was distributed in this country was cut with fentanyl. In 2016, it rose to 12%. 2017, 31% of the heroin contained fentanyl. 2018, 54% of the reported heroin doses contained fentanyl, the killer. 50 to 100 times more powerful than heroin. Drug dealers will put fentanyl in their heroin because they want deaths, because it advertises to the addicts that they have a good product, they have a strong product. And people will gamble with their lives to get that heavy hit. What are the statistics for 2019 for fentanyl? The majority of the heroin contains this killer. Where do we get it? Because it's synthetic, it comes from China, it comes from ordering over the dark web. Your son or your daughter can order it over the dark web, and it comes in the mail. And it's not just fentanyl that they can order. If they know how to manipulate the dark web, and let me tell you, your kids know much more about the web and the dark web than we'll ever know. They can order marijuana, they can order Oxycontin, they can order LSD, they can order anything over the dark web, and it will be delivered in the mail. The theme of this gathering is raising resilient kids. And as Assemblyperson Shapezi indicated, in raising them we have to have structure, right? We have to have the rules, but we also have to give them the freedom to exercise those rules, to exercise self-discipline. At the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office, we can't do that for families, of course. So what do we do? What is our contribution to raising resilient kids? Our contribution is a little more formal. It's educational. We try to give kids the education that they need to resist going down the pathway to addiction. We have a program that's called the Pathway to Addiction. Nancy O'Brien knows it well, right? We give it to every 9th grader in the county every year. We give it to 10,000 9th graders. And we try to teach them with somebody from our narcotics task force, with maybe a recovering addict, with maybe a mother who's lost a child, speaking to students about the dangers of drug addiction, trying to teach them what it is, how you get on that pathway, and how to resist the pathway. 10,000 9th graders we educate each year, and we have been doing that for the last 5 years. I was kind of disturbed when I took over as acting prosecutor, and I saw how young these kids were that were experimenting with drugs and heroin. And I said, you know what? We can't wait till the 9th grade. So we expanded it. So now we're giving it to 7th graders, and we're giving it to 8th graders in those schools that will invite us in. This is available to all schools. It's available to public schools. It's available to religious schools. It's available to private schools. Not everybody lets us in. But to those who let us in, we try to teach their kids. We try to teach your kids. We are trying to expand that program to get more municipal police officers trained and to get some help in that area so we can maybe expand it to 6th graders around the county. And that's what we call our drug education task force. And we're just training those officers now, and we hope to be able to implement that at the end of this year going into next year. We have a lot of these programs which we feel give students the tools to try to make good decisions. We have programs in drinking and driving. We have programs in sexual assault and date rape. We have programs in cyberbullying that are available to the schools. We've just reissued a video that was made 10 years ago when we released Sticks and Stones, which concentrates on cyberbullying and teen suicide. And that's available to all schools. Actually, part of that video was filmed up here in Park Ridge. One of the things that we are concentrating on, and Holly touched on it, is mental health. Because, as you should know, a lot of these kids have emotional problems, psychological problems, and they self-medicate. Whether it starts with marijuana, which I believe is a gateway drug, or it starts with something else. They self-medicate because they have emotional problems that just overwhelm them. This year, last year we started on the project. This year we're implementing it. It's the Safe Schools Task Force. Of course, the Safe Schools Task Force has to do with preventing violence in the schools and coping with violence. But the first thing that we recommended in our report, which we released earlier this month, is a mental health initiative. Assessment care teams, which have a mental health professional for each school, so that we can detect problems, mental health problems, emotional problems in our students, and that we can have an intervention to provide those students the services that they need to get on the right track or to stay on the right track, to prevent them from going down the pathway to addiction, to prevent them from self-medicating. In 2019, our real initiative this year is early intervention for juveniles, to try to keep them out of the criminal justice system, an expansion of the Station House Adjustment Program that we have, and to try to get them at the earliest possible stage the social services, the mental health services that they need to keep them out of the criminal justice system. You know, very often, you know, the theory behind the juvenile justice system is rehabilitation. But very often, when you get involved in the juvenile justice system, it's, you know, you get lawyers involved, you're going to court, it's detrimental to the rehabilitation of juveniles. So what we're trying to do is focus on that early intervention. Let's try to keep them out of the system. Let's try to identify their needs at the station house if we possibly can, and make the proper referrals for them so that they can get the services that they need. We're lucky here in Bergen County. We have all of law enforcement. We can't do these projects without the local police departments, and they're an integral part of all of these projects. It's not like that in every other county, and let me tell you that we're doing more in this county, and the police departments in this county are doing more than in any other county across the state. But we need your support, of course. We need your support through your school boards to have them take advantage of the resources that law enforcement can provide. I thank you for coming out. I thank you for staying involved. Don't just come to these meetings. Be involved. As Holly said, talk to your kids. Make sure they make the right decisions as far as you are able to do that. And also, remain optimistic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dennis. We do have coming up, I'm going to say Michael's name wrong, Gasali, Mayor of Lockvale. We also have Robert Metzdorf, who is Councilman from Park Ridge, and I have Sergeant Jim Foley from Wickliffe Lake Police Department. If you want to come up, and then we can have you already up here.
Thank you, Cheryl and Meryl and the committee for hosting this. So we just heard all the statistics, and that took out the whole chunk of my speech, so that's good. So in the Pascack Valley, over the last several years, thousands of criminal complaints and indictments for possession and distribution of controlled dangerous substance were booked, just right here in our backyards. Now there's a soft cost and there's the hard cost to all of this, but we often forget the pain in the families where they break apart, divorces, losing jobs, depression, and worse, physical harm to oneself and to their loved ones. And to say it starts at home, it's easier said than done as a parent. I have two boys, one in college and one in high school at Pascack Hills. And I see and hear what goes on every day. And it seems we as parents are fighting a battle with the school almost. And seeing what's happening in Trenton to legalize recreational marijuana, it just adds to the kids' argument that, you see, Dad, it's okay to use, my friends are using it, and it's just frustrating. So a few years ago, about 2 years ago, out of just my frustration, I asked the police chief to call the dogs. Let's have a fire drill and sweep the school and see what's happening in the school. And we quickly changed our plan when the police chief said, we can't do that because I can't guarantee you what we'll find with the staff and the faculty. So we count on our younger generation's resiliency and an open mind to identify right from wrong. And we as elected officials and parents will do our part to drive home the message. I am optimistic by nature, and I believe we will eventually declare victory. But I'm also reminded of a story I was told once, where a son left his house and went away to find work. And then he sent a letter to his father saying that he is tired of seeing drunken men, thieves, wars, and young men causing havoc, and wished that everyone could live in peace and harmony. That letter was written on a piece of leather sent on a mule 3,000 years ago. I don't have the answer, but I love the resiliency message, and I love seeing the young kids here, and thank you, Mom, for bringing your kids here. That's awesome to see them here. And I love the fact that we will not give up. I've been to too many funerals of young kids lately and visited with too many parents whose lives are forever changed. Let us continue to work together and tell our story, and I hope you never stop this. Thank you.
Hello and good afternoon. My name is Robert Metzdorf. I'm a councilperson in Park Ridge. The reason I'm here today instead of the mayor is he had some family commitments. His son had a game, a high school game this morning, and his wife is celebrating her birthday this afternoon. Happy birthday, Desiree. The mayor asked me to come and express his heartfelt thanks that you are all here today, that you all care about your community, that you care about the children that we are in fact losing on a daily basis. And he wants to thank you for that. Coming over here, I Googled a statistic. In 1999, in the United States of America, 16,849 people died from drugs. 2 years ago, less than 2 years ago, 2017, 70,237 people died. It's an epidemic. It's an astounding increase in the number of people dying on a daily basis. It happens in USA, it happens in Bergen County, it happens in Park Ridge, Woodcliff Lake, and Montvale in the Tri-Borough. I'm a practicing attorney who does criminal defense work. In 10 years, I've probably done close to 1,000 drug cases. I've lost many clients in that decade. They have not come back from their use of drugs. However, on a brighter note, many clients have been saved. They have used the community resources. They have gone into rehab, and today they are living. Last year, in 2018, I lost 3 clients, all below the age of 25 years old. This year, early into the year, in January, I lost my first client. A young woman, 20 years old, a college student. This young woman came into my office, I interviewed her, and she told me about her drug use. She was a recreational user of drugs. She told me, I'm not an addict. Well, one day in January, she took the wrong drug. It doesn't matter what drug, she's dead. She had a funeral, lots of people showed up. including myself. This Thanksgiving, her family is going to have dinner without her. Monday in school, in her university, there'll be an empty seat. She will not be there. I tell you this story because the statistics don't tell it all. They don't. They tell us how many people died. They tell us how much fentanyl is around, how much heroin is around, how much cocaine is around. But they don't tell us about the individual. I know you're going to hear from individuals today. This girl, this young woman, cannot talk to you. As you can probably tell, it's affected me greatly. The last decade has affected me greatly. I've lost a lot of clients. They were good people. They were people with addictions. They were people recreational, and they died, and they're not here, and they will not be here. So, in conclusion, the takeaway from today should be what you're teaching them today, what you're teaching young people today, what we are teaching young people today, is that they shouldn't go down that. They shouldn't go down that street. They shouldn't use the drugs, and that's admirable. But people do use drugs, as the prosecutor explained to us, as his assemblywoman explained to us. The other takeaway from today, and what you're teaching them, is that there is an out. There's a place they can go. They can talk to their counselors, they can talk to their parents, maybe their brother, maybe their sister, maybe their friends. But there is treatment. Today, I have a friend of mine who is in a treatment center in Florida. Hopefully he will leave the use of heroin behind. He's 56 years old. So it's not just children, it's adults, it's middle-aged people, and I'm told it's even older people. But I'd like to thank you all for being here, and I'd like to thank you for what you do. If you save a child, if you save a young person, if you save an older person, it's well worth what you're doing. Thank you.
Sergeant Jim Foley from Local Fight.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having us. As the prosecutor stated, it's going to be a hard program to follow. You guys have covered everything I wanted to cover. I've been a sworn police officer now for 25 years. 15 of those years I've been dedicated to the schools and the kids of Wolcott Lake. Our biggest goal right now is, as the prosecutor stated, community policing. We need to be out there as much as we can, as long as the town allows it and the programs allow us, to be involved in these schools with these kids and watching what's going on. In Wolcott Lake, we teach the program LEAD, which is law enforcement against drugs. It's very similar to DARE. For years we did DARE, now we switched over to LEAD for a little while. The biggest accomplishment as a DARE or a LEAD officer is seeing the kids firsthand. You're looking at these kids, you're speaking to these kids, but when you give them the ratio of saying, there's 25 kids in this room today, I'm guaranteeing you 20, 22 kids will have an experience, first-hand experience, or seeing drugs once they get to the high school level. One of the biggest losses to us is when we lose one of these kids to drugs. We won't see it on the 5th grade level, but as we watch them go through the program, 7th and 8th grade, which we're also starting to revisit the programs, because losing a kid from 5th grade to high school is a big gap. The biggest thing is losing these kids when you hear in the news that this individual from Wolcott Lake or Parkridge passed on. Yes, they were one of my DARE students. Where did it go wrong? Where did we miss it? Our program is only as strong as the parenting program. Okay, everything starts at home. Anything we emphasize to the kids, we like that the parents will pick up in the program and also emphasize. I have 3 kids myself. My oldest daughter is 20 years old. She's a sophomore in college. When our kids go off to college and they think about what schools they're going to, as a parent, you sit here and go, I hope they don't pick that school. I hope they don't pick that school. I can honestly say I have faith in my daughter. Of course, she's going to be out there. She's going to be part of programs that are going to be pushing drugs upon her. The biggest thing today when there's a college graduate that graduates college is you want to congratulate them on getting their education, but you also want to congratulate them on you made it. You made it through the system. You made it through the system without getting caught up in it. And I would say, you know, there's never an age group that you know that you're going to fail or fall behind in taking drugs. But in this day and age, it's such a relief. And my younger kids, my twins, you have to sit there and you try to teach them the best. I also spoke to my wife and said, we need now to adjust to them, not have them adjust to us, because with our whole schooling and as parenting and as we brought up, we have to adjust to these kids today. With the social media, with the cell phones, with the what's going on everywhere in this community. The biggest thing is adjusting to them, allowing them to make mistakes, also keep a close eye on them, and know what's going on in their futures and who they're hanging out with. Success stories are very rare. I personally have 2 or 3 family friends that their kids were affected by drugs, and I can honestly say that they have pulled through the program, and they have gone. And their biggest thing is, again, I'm not to scare people out of Bergen County, their biggest thing was to succeed in their program was to get out of this area. The area was allowing a lot more drugs to come in. They had to be sent up to Pennsylvania just to get away from it a little bit. We have the average kids. We have the average kids in this town. The last 2 or 3 months between the Tri-Borough, I think we had 6 Narcan saves. Okay, 2 of those were fatals, and the 4 are remaining. 1 or 2 of those still might be people that we visit often. Okay, we've been to this house before, we've been to this patient before, and again, here we are using Narcan, and it's where is it going wrong? Where are we not helping them? Cocaine. Cocaine is back. Cocaine was a big drug in the 80s. Cocaine is now coming back into the area. As the prosecutor stated, there's gangs out there or people out there. When I speak to a parent and they say, oh, I heard Johnny got a bad case of drugs, a bad batch. Is there ever a good batch of drugs? So to say there's a bad batch that was laced with fentanyl, these drug dealers, when they're mixing things up on the table, do you think they're doing things with the most sterile care? No. They got fentanyl here, they got heroin here, they got cocaine there. Everything they're touching is now being mixed together. So when people are saying that the heroin is bad because now it's laced with the fentanyl, is 100% true. But again, these drug dealers they're not really caring about what they're doing as long as their product gets out. And their products have to be marked, okay? If there's a product out there where it comes in a baggie, they put their markings on it. They're proud of what they're putting out there. So if a kid comes in and says, oh, I need to get a hit of the deck for the 8-ball on it, or the unicorn on it, or I need to get something with SpongeBob on it, these kids are knowing it. They're knowing what they're looking for. Again, my biggest, strongest point is now we need to adjust to what our kids are experiencing. My son, in a quick story and I'm done, he plays a junior football program. We played a bigger city down in Bergen County, from up this way, and as we were going into the town, the kids on the football team had their helmets, their shoulder pads on their handlebars, and they were riding to the games, like we all did as we were growing up. My son said, Dad, why are all these football players all over the streets? What are they doing? I said, James, this is a big difference in this day and age where we drop you off at everything, we get you to everything we need to get you to. The kids in these inner cities are still living that life where they're jumping on their bikes and they're going to these programs and to these sporting events. The kids up here don't see that anymore. We don't have the bike riding kids and the kids that are hanging out at parents, other kids' houses, or on the street corner, things like that. So he kind of laughed and was like, wow, I don't think I could ever make it up Grand Avenue on my bike. You could. So again, thank you to all the people here today and the ones that spoke. They have your best interest in mind. And so does the Woodruff Lake Police, Parkridge Police, and the Montville Police Department. We're here for everybody. Thank you.
I want to thank all our guest speakers so far. Just take a look around the room too, because there are some displays and a lot of information for you if you'd like.
Good morning, I'm Officer Marini, Sheriff's Department. We're asked to come talk about how we fight the opioid crisis with our canine partners. So we're both assigned to the canine unit. My canine partner is 7 years old, he's a patrol narcotics canine. His partner is 8 years old, he's also patrol narcotics. So what you're going to see, he's going to bring his partner in, he's going to show you how we search for drugs, how we find them, and some of the things that we do in the unit is, right now we have 13 narcotics dogs assigned to canines. So anytime there's a narcotics dog always on the road, we help any town that calls for our assistance, whether it be inside the county of Bergen or outside the county of Bergen. We have We also go into all the schools around the county. We do searches of the schools, high schools, elementary schools, if they ask us to locate the drugs and try to show the kids that there is a presence of the canines out there. And we'll come in, we'll do the searches. So one of the biggest things that are threatening everybody else with the fentanyl, carfentanil, is also affecting our canines too. So when we do search, we have to be a lot more careful now, because carfentanil and fentanyl is just as deadly to them as it is to us. So for us, if we do, somebody does come in contact with a bad batch, they can at least say they need help, or Narcan. Our canine partners, they're not going to be able to tell us that they came in contact with us. So what we have to do, we have to observe it after our search. And we do use Narcan for our canine partners also. So this is Canine Brett. He's going to do a quick.
Good boy. Good job. So, yeah, I don't know if you could actually see what he was doing. He was scratching. He came this way. He smelt the odor, and he fell back, found the source, and started scratching at the source. And that's where we hit the drugs.
Yeah, on this stage we had the drugs. I'll show you guys how our partners are trained, how they do find narcotics when they are hidden. Our partners are trained to be aggressive indicators, so they'll scratch and bite at source where the narcotics are.
Okay, I'm going to call up Police Officer Greg Santangelo, who is our Parkridge Dare officer, and also Julia Manning, who went to our peer leadership conference this year.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Officer Greg Santangelo with the Police Department, and I'm the lead Dare instructor for our department. We teach grades K-12 with the main focus on 5th grade. Some people ask me, why is there the importance on the 5th grade? It's because we believe in instilling from an early age how to make safe and responsible decisions. We know that this is the age where kids are becoming more knowledgeable about the dangers in this world, mainly the danger of drugs and alcohol. I like to start every new Dare year with asking the children what they want to be when they grow up. So I'll hear a doctor, or a professional sports player, or a teacher, and then the occasional police officer. I proceed to tell them that they will face a tough decision on a regular basis. And all it takes is one time that they make one poor decision that can affect that dream entirely. We tell these kids from a young age, think before you act. And it's something so basic, yet so important. I must admit, I was prepared to express how saddened I was for the state of New Jersey would be legalizing the recreational use of marijuana, but it had just gotten voted down. So I'm very extremely happy about that. In our 7th and 8th grade Dare classes, we have a large focus on marijuana. And each year I tell the class, I hear more and more students say that they have other students who are smoking marijuana. And every day I'll ask, who here knows kids that are smoking marijuana? Nobody will raise their hands. And then I go and tell them, can you all close your eyes and then raise your hands? And then everybody's hand shoots up. And we do have a unique high school because with the 7th and 8th grade, it's combined with the high school. So it's a little bit different. These 7th and 8th graders that are 13 years old, they're seeing what 17 and 18-year-olds are doing, so they're much more knowledgeable. I, for a fact, know that marijuana is a gateway drug. It would be very tough for me to teach these students if it were legalized. If the state is saying that it's okay to use this drug, the amount of students smoking it is only going to rise, and in time those students would move on to other dangerous substances. We have a drug epidemic right now within our community. And my department will continue to create new programs to combat these drug trends. I am not ready to back down, and I hope that everyone in this room stands with me with my decisions, and let's lend a helping hand to these kids and steer them in the right direction. And we're lucky to have somebody who happens to be a star Dare student, Julia Manning.
Hi, my name is Julia Manning, and I'm a senior at Parkridge High School. I am so grateful to have been asked to attend the Elks Peer Leadership Conference back in February. It was definitely one of the best experiences I've ever had. Going into it, I had no idea what to expect. But when I left the conference, I was a stronger and more empowered person. During the 3-day workshop, I was able to meet new friends, listen to some of the best motivational speakers I've heard, learned about myself and others, and I even got to bust a move on the dance floor. That was a lot of fun. I even got to watch my peers get hypnotized, which was hysterical. There was even icebreakers that they pulled us out of our comfort zones, and we got to interact with over 400 different people. There was a diverse group of speakers: a track and field Olympian, a special agent from the DEA, a stand-up comedian, a motivational speaker born from a young teen mom and abandoned by his father, and the list goes on. What I learned from the speakers was pursue natural highs through laughter, meditation, and be resilient in the face of stress. Work hard, lead with enthusiasm, and push yourself through the hard times, and there will be hard times. The drug statistics in our area and our country are frightening, and they frighten a lot of people. There are many different drugs popping up everywhere. Addiction does not have to have a face. It can only take one time to get hooked and even die. With all the social media and instant notifications, my generation has grown up in a culture where it is needed to connect on social media. Just believe in yourself and go after the best that life has to offer. Surround yourself with people who believe in you too. You are not alone. Everyone's going through something and their own problems. You just need to be open and support one another. You never know what they're going through, so be kind and don't judge. Thank you again for the amazing opportunity to participate in this workshop, providing me with life skills to carry forward for the rest of my life. I encourage everyone to attend this conference. Thank you.
Okay, I would like to now ask Trish Casey to come up. She's she's a friend. She lost her daughter Jacqueline in 2015, and she's going to tell you her story.
Hello, my name is Trish Casey. My daughter Jacqueline died on March 21st, 2015. She did not die of what the norm seems to be when people think of when they hear drugs and overdose. She died of a combination of the drugs she took the week she died. Oh, sorry. She died of the combination of drugs she took that week she died, and her secondary cause of death was bipolar disease. The drugs in her system were not of any overdose level. Her mental illness and the medications that she took for it contributed to her death. 80% of bipolar or mentally ill people become addicted to drugs, and it's a symptom of the disease. Jacqueline was 26. She was gorgeous, funny, smart, at times aggravating, charmingly manipulative, and forced to be reckoned with. Unfortunately, when young people like her die in the manner that she did, the focus is all about the stigma associated with drugs. That's why I'm here today. When I was asked to speak, I immediately said yes, because over the past 4 years since she has passed, I no longer see the shock on people's faces, and they become used to the epidemic when a young person dies. We are more worried about who the president insulted or the sexual harassment of celebrities than the epidemic that is killing our children at staggering rates, and we need to get in front of it. My daughter became addicted to crack and heroin 5 months before she passed away. She tried heroin a total of 3 times, and 2 of them was in the week she died. Because of her mental illness, she would go off her meds. One of the many horrible side effects of bipolar disease. From there, she self-medicated. Our healthcare system does not allow you to walk into a rehab when you're ready. You either have to be withdrawing or court-ordered or come from a place where you're suicidal. The way the healthcare is set up now, an addict can be out on drugs thinking they have it under control, or worse, dead by the time there's a bed ready. We need to find a way to change this. So my overarching message today is to listen to your gut. My daughter was always addicted to something, alcohol, Xanax, or pot. She had ADHD, and these drugs, she said, would calm her mind. Her mental illness magnified her erratic states of behavior. So I'm here to tell you, if you are a parent and your child is living with you, You are not alone if one day you realize you don't know what's going on with your child, because I too had a crash course. Jacqueline's best friend called me to tell me she had tried heroin. I knew there was something different about her drug use. I knew she was deeper into it, and she just wasn't drinking with blacking out, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Let's face it, how many of us know the signs of a person on crack and or heroin? I quickly learned what a busted crack pipe looks like in my house. I became adept at identifying the odd smell in my kitchen from cooking baking soda. I realized that I was missing tablespoons and missing valuables. Prior to being addicted to crack, Jacqueline would take a dime off the table if it wasn't hers. That all changed in the blink of an eye. She lied constantly, and that wasn't her either. We used to joke about how brutally honest she was at times. When all of this was going on, and I leaned on my family and friends for support, many of them told me I should kick her out. She is an adult, she needs to learn. I need to stop enabling her. I know this was all said out of love and fear, but I refused to kick her out. I listened to my gut. It's not that I didn't confront her or argue with her. I never let up on her, and in a moment of weakness on her part, and after a lot of arguing, I eventually got her into a rehab. Unfortunately, she stayed for 2 weeks, came home, and I didn't see her for 7 days. She had a boyfriend that was a crack dealer and would sleep in his car or in a drug motel. I, on the other hand, never slept. I kept my keys under my pillow, mace in the nightstand, and all the knives were hidden. I never knew if she would bring someone home that was dangerous. I never knew what state of mind she would be in. So I decided in order to save her, I would get an order of protection against her that allowed her to live in my house, but she had to be clean and find employment. Her boyfriend, or anyone else for that matter, was not allowed in my house. If the order was violated, then she would have been arrested. At the time, I thought at least jail wouldn't be the grave. We went to court 1 month before she died. At the time, my heart broke, thinking it was the hardest thing I ever had to do. But the groundwork had been laid, and we were scheduled to go back on Monday, March 23rd. And she had met none of the requirements set in place by the judge, and she was going to be sent away to a long extended rehab. God had a different plan. Friday, March 20th, she came home messed up. I knew she was going to be going away, so I let her go to sleep. We spoke for a minute, she got some water, went to bed. I checked on her 3 times. Anyone in this room or who knows anyone who has gone through this knows and understands the constant check on their breathing. I left the house one more time in the morning. When I arrived home at 2 p.m., I found her dead, kneeling over her bed as if she was praying. She had slept for 15 hours. She got up, she made a phone call that morning. She even changed her shirt, and then she dropped. So did my daughter die of addiction? Yes. She also died of mental illness, but all anyone said when she died was an overdose. Tons of rumors swirled on the Facebook community pages hours after her death to begin a discussion surrounding the circumstances, including a lot of rumors. Ultimately, the stigma around addiction needs to change, and the facilities need to change their rules on how they accept patients. But even more than that, we know that will take forever. What can we do now? Why can't we discuss these drugs in a brutally honest way to 4th graders, 3rd graders, a deeper DARE program? We need to get them early. I'm not an expert, but I am a grieving mom who lost her only child to addiction coupled with mental illness. Both of these subjects need to be addressed and discussed when children are young. Churches need to have more youth groups that focus on it. Resources for therapists, psychiatrists need to be available for families and their kids. If you are the parent or a loved one of an active addict, I know how you feel. It's powerless, afraid, angry, desperate, terrified. I've been there. I come back to what I said earlier, though. Listen to your gut. As hard as it is when your gut makes you want to throw up at the reality of what your child has become, an addict. I was very protective. I was very protective of Jacqueline and her mental illness and her addiction. As parents, we want to protect them no matter what. And you want what's best for your child. Get them help, stick to your gut. Reach out to family and friends even when you don't want to hear the judgment. Be strong about it. Reach out to your church. Get a therapist for you, but don't beat yourself up. This is a disease, and when they become addicted, they are physically addicted. Their minds will focus on feeding that addiction, to make their bodies physically feel better. They shouldn't be judged, they should be helped. I say listen to your gut because I wake up every day having to suppress the feeling of sickness in my gut as I grieve the loss of my daughter. For me, the answer was not kicking my daughter out. Yelling and lecturing and overcompensating for her did not work. If there were a virus or some epidemic causing children to die, there would be an immediate response to save them. Vaccines, quarantines, government involvement. Why is it so hard to get out from under this and help the mentally ill who are addicts or just addicts in general? How many more have to die? If you are here today with a struggling over a family member with addiction, combined with mental illness or not, please know it's okay to feel out of control, scared, and alone. But those feelings should not overcome your gut feeling to get your child or family member help in any way you can. Help is out there. It will be a relief to you in the company of other families struggling that can identify with what you're going through and give you resources and strategies to cope with what's happening in your life. It's too late for my Jacqueline. I grieve her every day. I would take all those feelings back to have her here with me. I have a very strong faith, and I know she is safe now. But there is no reason why in our society we can't find safety for our children who are suffering from the disease of addiction to not only have them survive, but thrive again one day. Thank you.
Okay, Nancy, come on up.
Hi, my name is Nancy O'Brien. This is my son Kevin, and I would like to let you know something about our son who we lost on December the 2nd, 2016 to the disease of addiction. He comes with me wherever I go, so get used to it. Our hope is that Kevin did not die in vain, and we want to turn our pain into purpose in an effort to raise awareness and end the stigma attached to addiction. We share our son with you to let you know who Kevin was and potentially save the life of another. What could be more important than that? So I would like you to meet Kevin. Kevin was the youngest of our two sons. His brother Corey is 21 months older than Kevin. We raised our boys in Woodcliff Lake, and they were afforded all the privileges the suburbs of Bergen County have to offer. This disease does not discriminate on the basis of zip code. It affects us all. It is no longer not my kid, not my problem. The faces of addiction deaths and their families are our neighbors, our church members, our relatives, friends, and people we know and love. Like many of you, we were blessed with a family of 4 living the American dream in our community. Kevin was a happy, healthy little guy born into a loving family. Kevin and his brother Corey shared a great sibling relationship. Because they were so close in age, they did most everything together and shared mutual friends. Corey liked to play by the rules, and in contrast, Kevin liked to push the envelope and bend the rules. Their personalities complemented one another, and they truly grew up as brothers and friends. Both boys participated in sports while in grade school and high school. Basketball, baseball, lacrosse were all part of their childhood. Their dad was a coach. Pretty much typical stuff. It should be noted that Kevin's childhood was without trauma. Pretty typical stuff. We enjoyed the yearly vacations to North and South Carolina, and of course the traditional Disney World. Dad was a salesman, and Mom was a teacher, and life was good. Kevin's sense of humor and his love of pranks was his hallmark. In grammar school, there was a devilish side of Kevin that often got him into minor trouble, and more importantly, lots of attention. He had a remote control watch that he would wear to school. And when the teacher would bring the TV in to show an educational program, Kevin would sit at his desk and change the channels, the volume, the off and on controls from his watch, and delight in the frustration of the teacher. Retelling the story to family and friends gave Kevin great pleasure. He was one of the funniest people I have ever met. He could cut us to shreds with his impersonations, and we would laugh until tears rolled down our faces. Corey and Kevin's dad were his best audience. Kevin went to Catholic school in Oradell, New Jersey. An average student, Kevin was able to maintain grades that afforded him a small scholarship to the University of Rhode Island. Kevin was a smart, witty kid. He had tremendous potential for a bright future. He enjoyed the company of many friends, including girlfriends, while in high school, and in hindsight, his life ahead looked very promising. I know that he planned that for himself, too. Kevin didn't wake up thinking, I think I'll become a drug addict one day. No one does. He didn't choose to struggle with the disease of addiction as he did for the next 10 plus years. He saw a relatively typical future for himself, and we did too. Certainly Kevin had no misunderstanding of how powerful this disease would become and the impact it would have on himself and those who loved him. No one could possibly envision where this journey would take us, least of all Kevin. Truthfully, we didn't think these kinds of events happened to people like us. When Kevin left URI, his life and ours changed forever. It was there that he was introduced to heroin. Kevin majored in finance in college. He lived in a beautiful home off campus on the beach. His behavior began to change, and our once carefree boy would vacillate between euphoria and lethargy. In spite of his drug use, Kevin was able to graduate from college. We suspected drugs and thus began years of rehabs, detoxes, and sober living homes, which would become part of Kevin's lifestyle. His once bright future was looking more unattainable. He had dreams of getting married and raising a family. Kevin adored children and pets. He had a love of both that was part of his charm and his warmth. He was a good person with a bad problem. Heroin. Heroin was winning. However, there were some periods of sobriety where Kevin was fulfilling his dreams by holding down a job, renting a condo, driving a nice car, and he had a girlfriend. That was the best of the times for all of us. He was really happy during those times. His employers raved about his potential. He worked in telephone sales, and he had the ability to sell you the bridge that you never wanted. No matter what the circumstances, Kevin maintained a close relationship with his family. We were always in touch, usually on a daily basis. We loved him no matter what. Although we walked that difficult path between enabling and tough love with Kevin, he always knew that we loved him, and we knew how much he loved us too. I will know that forever. I wish you could have met him. You would have liked him. I think everyone who met Kevin loved being in his company when he was clean. Kevin's last rehab was in Portland, Maine. He desperately wanted to return to Delray Beach, Florida, when he completed treatment. That was during the summer of 2016. He found his way back to Florida and returned to a previous job, and he got high. On December 2nd, 2016, Kevin was found dead in a motel in Boynton Beach, and he was 30 years old. His coworker and friend called me that morning to tell me that Kevin was getting high and that he was missing. 4 hours later, the town police of Woodcliff Lake were at my door telling me the news of his death. My scream was primal. Our beautiful, funny, smart boy was gone. Life will never be the same since that day in December. Our grief is palpable, unbearable at times. My son Corey flew down to Florida to identify the body and bring home Kevin's belongings. Through Kevin's cell phone, Corey was able to retrace Kevin's last night. Kevin told an Uber driver to pick him up the next morning for work. He didn't want to die, he wanted to live. The next morning, housekeeping found him, and that was his last day of life. Cause of death, fentanyl, intoxication. We are all broken having watched Kevin struggle. He was an amazing human being who was unable to maintain recovery. He had every tool made available to him to fight this disease, but it was just too big for all of us. Love was not enough to save him. I pray that no families experience what we have endured. Kevin should still be here with us, and we miss him desperately. So now I am the co-chair for the Bereaved Parent Program of Alumni in Recovery. Together with young people in recovery, we provide presentations at local schools to raise awareness on a peer-to-peer basis, as well as to share the message from a parent who has lost a child to the disease of addiction. Our mission is to end the stigma by providing open and honest conversations throughout our local communities. I am also part of the Hope and Healing Bereavement Group, which meets the first and third Wednesday of every month in Allendale. We gather together to support all those who have lost a loved one to addiction. We call it the Crappy Club because no one wants to belong to it. In closing, I would like to share with you a letter that I found on the internet that touched me very deeply. And it says, an open letter to my family. I am a drug user and I need help. Don't solve my problems for me. This only makes me lose respect for you and for myself. Don't lecture, moralize, scold, blame, or argue, whether I'm stoned or sober. It may make you feel better, but it only makes the situation worse. Don't accept my promises. The nature of my illness prevents me from keeping them, even though I mean them at the time. Promises are only my way of postponing the pain, and do not keep switching agreements. If an agreement is made, stick to it. Don't lose your temper with me. It will destroy you and any possibility of helping me. And don't let your anxiety for me make you do what I should be doing for myself. Don't believe everything I tell you. Often, I don't even know the truth, let alone tell it. And don't cover up or try to spare me the consequences of my using. It may reduce the crisis, but it will make my illness worse. Above all, do not run away from reality, as I do. Drug dependence, my illness gets worse as my using continues. Start now to learn, to understand, to plan for recovery. Find Families Anonymous, whose group exists to help families in just your situation, because I need help. From a doctor, a psychologist, a counselor, and from people in a self-help program who have recovered from a drug problem themselves and from a power greater than myself. Love, your addict. So with that, I would like to thank you for letting me share my son, Kevin, with you. And with that, I would like to introduce my very good friend, Nancy LeBeau, who is the founder of Alumni in Recovery.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thank you. And I kind of wish all the police were still here and the prosecutor's office, but Sergeant Santangelo gets to carry that with them. He gets to be in charge of carrying the message of Alumni in Recovery. I usually like to walk around, so it's kind of hard for me to just stand here. But I first want to say that I've been a nurse and a counselor working in treatment since for over 2 decades. Beforehand, I was a neuro nurse. I worked in neurology and neurosurgery. I've always had a very deep passion for helping people in treatment for addiction, and basically because of my own upbringing and my own family disease, very similar to what Assemblywoman Capizzi was saying. I also have been in recovery for 29 years and 10 months, not quite 30, so I'm not staying 30 yet. So, but anyway, the point being is that my whole life, I've had a big passion for prevention, treatment, and recognition of this disease, and I've seen it on all levels, So I started Alumni in Recovery, and that is an organization where it's all volunteer. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization about 4.5 years ago. the reason why I started is because I just knew and could see the identification from a peer-to-peer approach. And young people in recovery are as close as you can get to peer-to-peer approach for kids in schools. I knew as my own upbringing that anybody that could bring me a message possibly could, maybe have made a little bit of a difference in my life. I definitely had my own anxieties and depressions and stuff growing up. It's kind of hard not to in an alcoholic family system. And here's the thing, needs to be talked about a lot. If we can get to the root, just to plant seeds in the minds of our youth young, nobody can do that better than young people in recovery. At this date, we have about 60 or 70 young people that have been involved in alumni in recovery. We've had about 70 presentations so far this year. Almost all of them in school. Some of them were parent program events. We need to get into more schools. We need to, bridge the schools with the recovery community. And again, our primary purpose is to bring young people in recovery into schools, and we do it, and it's happening. And they just volunteer their time. These are working, going to school, young people, citizens in our community. This is going to help end the stigma. Our kids you all get to carry the torch for ending the stigma, and this can happen. Right now, our goal and hope is to mobilize every person in the community to get on board and want to make a change in this. We have to speak about this all the time. One thing I know about recovery is that it's a daily program. So our community, with all the deaths we've had, it's pretty much affecting our whole community. So basically our whole community can get on board in recovery right now. And that means that we're going to have discussions about it regularly. So our goal is to try to create regular presentations in maybe a consistent space. And you and the communities can help us with that and how to advertise for it and get the word out there. And we may possibly have one in the Elks Club in Closter. And we're talking like maybe every quarter, having a regular program where it's just not an in and out, but where people can become familiarized with the idea of having these conversations run by the Heir Parent program, and to hear these stories, these heart-to-heart stories. The basic recovery is such a solution to the epidemic going on, because their message is the whole picture of the disease of addiction, because they're on the recovery end of it. We've got a great message, so I hope that you all will continue to try to get schools to embrace us, and possibly having the young people in recovery come into the schools at the beginning of the week, encourage the kids to tell their parents to come to the parent program towards the end of the week, and then everybody can be on the same page and have good conversations within the family, because we can help give you the language and the tools to talk about the disease of addiction effectively. It's a brain disease. Teresa, you put it so well. Teresa? Thank you. Memory. Anyway, and we can make a difference, and we're going to do it. We need each and every person in the community on board to do it. And with that, I'm going to air David. David, do you want to come up and speak? And then Noel can wrap it up. You want to come up? Go ahead. All right. And they're going to speak for about, 7, 8 minutes each.
Hello, my name is David, and I'm a recovering addict.
David.
Thank you for having me today. I could really identify with a lot of the speakers that came before me, and I really wish that when I was growing up, I graduated from a private boys' high school in 2008. When I was growing up, we really didn't have much awareness about drugs or alcohol. We didn't have a DARE program in my school. I remember I had maybe a few DARE classes in the 7th and 8th grade, but in my high school it was very, we just didn't talk about drugs and alcohol abuse. Thankfully, I did not have an issue in high school. I had very strict parents who immigrated here from communist Poland in the 80s. So I was I lived a very, I say sheltered life. And it wasn't until I got to college and I had all this freedom, and I wasn't really prepared with the coping skills that I could have had or should have had, and I didn't really know how to reach out for help. And I started abusing alcohol and marijuana. It was a very slow progression. I continued to get great grades, and I thought, oh, I don't have any issues. I get great grades. I'm on the dean's list every semester. How can I have an issue? And I just always thought of justifications for my disease and for my addiction, and I truly believed for my entire length of college that I had no issue. And towards the end of college, I began applying to law schools. I got into a great law school, and in the spring of 2012, I graduated college in 2012. In the spring of 2012, I was playing in a men's league, in a hockey men's league. I tore my meniscus and cracked a piece of my kneecap. I had 2 major surgeries, and back then there was no awareness. In 2012, no one was really discussing opioids, the dangers of opioids. Doctors weren't really aware. I mean, I guess they were aware. I hope they were, but at least they weren't aware that long-term prescription of opioids is dangerous. And I became physically dependent. And I thought I could, continue going. I could go to law school, and I can handle this, and I can deal with it on my own. And after the first semester, I'll get some treatment during the winter break. That didn't go well. My first semester of law school, I had a 1.4 GPA. I was extremely depressed about my academic performance, and I really always held myself to a higher standard. Failure wasn't an option for me, and I now realize that you can't really grow without failing, without learning and learning from your failures. So I had a bad semester, and then in January of 2013, I had to retake 1 or 2 of my exams, and by that time I couldn't afford the prescription painkillers anymore. So I started using other street opioids, and I had all this pressure about my future, and I'm ruining my law school career. That I attempted suicide in January of 2013. Luckily, immediately after I swallowed maybe 40, 50 opioid pills, my sister was home, thank God. I told my sister, I said, Anna, you have to take me to the hospital because I just took a whole bunch of medications and I'm gonna die. And she did. We went straight to the hospital, and I woke up 3 days later. I woke up briefly at some point later that day, but only just to open my eyes. I see all my family around me, and by that time I had admitted to them in November that I have a problem with opioids, and I just see my whole family around me, and I just roll my eyes, and and I just shake my head, and then I pass out again. And that began a journey for me. It wasn't my wake-up call yet. I went to a detox, and I was in and out of detoxes for the whole spring and summer of 2013. And then I went back to law school to try again. I absolutely was not ready to go back to law school. But my parents felt that if I don't go now, then I'm never going to go back. I went back to law school, and this time I had new freedom again, because my law school was in Newark, and I had a new freedom that no one. My mom would drop me off and pick me up later at the end of my classes, but she didn't know what I was doing in between those classes, and I tended to use injection needles and to inject opioids. Thank God I didn't know how to do it. I didn't have any friends. I lost communication with all my friends that I used to use with, and I looked it up on the internet how to do it. Thank God I never figured out how to exactly do it. And as a result of that, I developed an abscess in my left forearm, and because I was taking opioids, I had no idea that there was an abscess in my left forearm, because I was always on painkillers. So I didn't realize until I wake up one day and my forearm is 2 times the size, red and swelling, and so I go to the hospital. I admit to them immediately what I was doing, and it was really strange, because I admitted immediately that I had a problem. I'm injecting opioids into my forearm, and their first reaction was, okay, we're going to put you on morphine, and thank God my girlfriend's mother at the time was there, because I would have said, oh, absolutely, put me on morphine. I would have said, great. But thank God she was there, and she says to the doctor, did you not hear what he just said? That he has a problem with opioids, and you want to put him on morphine? And they put me on a non-narcotic painkiller. I don't remember the name. It starts with a T. But it works really well. It's not addictive. It's non-opioid, non-narcotic. And luckily that was my wake-up call to stop using opioids, because I stayed in the hospital for about a week. They call them specialists from New York University Hospital. I even had a video conference with another specialist in Europe, because they believed that there was some sort of viral or bacterial infection in my arm that was eating away at my flesh, and that they were drawing permanent marker on my arm, saying that it's spreading, and the discussion was that they're going to have to amputate my left arm, and thank God that didn't happen. I was able to recover, and after that I never touched opioids again, but my journey continued with substances. This time it was marijuana. I never used opioids, but I continued using marijuana, and one of the justifications for that was, well, at that time I believe it was legal in Colorado, and I said, look, it's legal in Colorado. I mean, the government says it's okay. Like, why do I know how to do it, right? And that's why I believe, as other speakers here before have said, that just sends the wrong message to youth. I absolutely believe that marijuana is a gateway drug, that alcohol is a gateway drug. I don't use any of those substances now, alcohol, marijuana, because the way I see it, they impair my judgment. And I could drink alcohol, and I can drink alcohol one day, I can drink, another day, but one day I'm going to drink, and one day it's going to pop into my mind that oh, maybe it's a good idea that I try another substance, and then it's just going to spiral out of control. But luckily, I was able to go back to law school in 2014. I finished law school in 2017. And I do work a 12-step program, and my life now is great. I love what I do. Speaking for AIR is, I think, one of the most important things I do in my life. Bringing this message to high school students, because I wish that when I was in high school I had this kind of presentation, that someone came and spoke to us about the reality of the disease and what's really going on, and I just wish also at that time that we had this awareness as we have now. There was absolutely, from what I remember, there was no talk on the news of heroin or fentanyl or anything in those days, and it's surprising to me that the statistics are rising, even though we have all this awareness now. But it's I guess the difficulty of dealing with the disease, the mental cravings, the physical cravings, and the withdrawals are very scary for people. I know it was very, very scary for me, but luckily we have educational programs like this. We have treatment options for people addicted to substances. For example, one is Suboxone taper treatment, which is basically a substitute that you get prescribed by a doctor that does not actually get you high. If you're an addict, of course, contains a small amount of a very weak opioid, and it also contains another medicine in it that doesn't allow you to get high. So I think that's also another crucial thing that recovering addicts should consider as a treatment option. I know it worked for me. I took it for a short time, and I just want to thank everyone for being here, for hearing my story, and supporting the recovery efforts in Bergen County and throughout the country. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Noelle, and I'm a woman in long-term recovery. I've been a member of AIR, which stands for Alumni in Recovery, for about 3 years now. God willing, in May of this year, I'll have 4 years in recovery, being sober. And thanks, David, for speaking and sharing your story. Like you've heard, we're young people who are in recovery, who we help each other a lot. Go through life sober. Something that we never thought would be possible when we started our journey in recovery, because we're young and we couldn't imagine a life without partying and drinking and drugging, and it's the best thing that ever happened to us. So we stick together and help each other out in life, and we get to have this amazing service opportunity to go to middle schools and high schools to speak and share our story, and share our stories of recovery, show them that it's possible to be young and sober despite what society and the movies and TV show. Share a story of the scary things that we went through, and we don't want anyone else to go through them. And we get to know each other, and we have to do something, like was mentioned before, we have to do something every day in order for us to stay sober by helping others. So a little bit about my story, about how I ended up in recovery, is that my mom was a teenager mom when she had me, and, they were just young and partying in high school. And, pretty much, long story short, they weren't really ready to raise me, my parents, so my grandparents raised me. And, growing up, we just come from a family that, we don't talk about anything, and, just make sure everything looks okay to everyone else on the outside. And, it was very confusing growing up. It wasn't that I was missing anything. I wasn't, lacking anything. My grandparents were my parents. Thank God I have them. They put roof over my head and everything that I, wanted and needed. And, they sent me to Catholic school my whole life as well. Great education, but from a young age, something always felt like it was missing, something always felt very wrong, and I could never put my finger on what that was, and I could never talk about it. We just didn't do that, it was just act like everything's okay. And then when I got to high school, I couldn't wait to party, and I too wish that the cops were still here. Growing up, my best friend was actually the chief of police's daughter, and we went to our first party together, and I was just a mess. I blacked out right away. I fell down the stairs. They had to pick me up to take care of me. And the next morning I was that was awesome. I can't wait to do it again. So throughout high school, that was my experience. Couldn't wait to go to parties. Anytime I drank, I drank to get drunk. I drank to numb the pain. I drank to numb the confusion. I drank to numb that feeling that I was different than everybody else. I always had friends. It's never like I didn't have friends, but I always felt my family's different than everybody else, and you'll never ever understand me. And unfortunately, this is a feeling that a lot of my friends in recovery, alcoholics and addicts have, that no one will ever understand what I'm going through. I can't talk about this with anyone, So I share this with the kids that, whatever it is that you're going through, even if it has nothing to do with alcohol and drugs, because this is what I learned in recovery, that I had all these things going on the inside that I never knew how to ask for help because I never thought that anyone would understand. So drugs and alcohol was my solution for all my problems, Drugs and alcohol made all those problems feel like they went away, and, I could just feel comfortable in my skin and, just party and, feel like I belonged, So I self-medicated with alcohol and with partying, and I continued to do that through all of high school, and I graduated from Holy Angels, So this is another reason why it's so important for me to go to the schools, because we keep talking about removing the stigma of alcoholism and addiction and recovery. We want to show them we're normal kids from New Jersey, that we look exactly like you. We sat in your seats. We never thought that we would be alcoholics or addicts. We never thought we had a problem. Like David said, we might have learned about what alcoholism and addiction is from a health textbook or, from the police officers and stuff, but having gone through it and being able to talk to the kids and really connect with them, because we sat in their seats and we went through what they're going through at the time, it's really powerful and effective. The kids really listen to us, and we're really passionate about what we do. So, growing up, I just thought, partying this is just what young people do, and little did I know, I could have read about alcoholism a million times in the health textbook. I don't know how many papers I wrote on it, but, I had no idea that me constantly blacking out was a clear sign that there was an issue already from freshman year of high school, But this is so normalized in our culture, of drinking is okay and partying is okay, that I was okay. I went to Holy Angels, I don't have a problem. I'm a smart kid, I don't have a problem. But by the time I got to college and stuff, my life was a mess. I was in a really dark place. My drinking was just getting worse. My relationship with my grandparents was getting worse. I really started to resent them because I felt like all the problems that I had in my life was everyone else's fault. Like it's my mom's fault, it's my dad's fault, my grandparents' fault. If you had my life, you would understand. But, it was all these excuses because at that time I was already an adult. Like I'm already in my early 20s. I just think that I'm a party girl, and I'm in my early 20s, so this is totally normal, but, what I was doing was anytime there was a problem or an issue in life, I had no idea how to get through it. I ran away from my problems by drinking and drugging, so finally, I failed out of school, and I was at the darkest, lowest point in my life, and I had no idea where to turn to, who to turn to, what to do. And thank God that, there's programs, free programs all over our community, in our backyards, in Bergen County, all over New Jersey, all over the world, 12-step recovery programs that help save my life, because, I come from an old school Greek family, they have no idea about this disease. They don't know anything about rehab or detox. I had no idea about any of these things. So 12-step recovery is what helped save my life. And I was able to turn my life around and, with the help of other people that are doing this. So I'm really grateful for my recovery today. I'm really grateful for my family. I'm really grateful for my friends that are here, that, we help each other, and, I really just want to continue to spread awareness with our group, by sharing our stories, which, as you can imagine, is not the easiest thing, but we're really passionate about this, preventing this from continuing to happen. So thank you for letting us share, and, we'll be here around if you have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to call Willie up, who is our district chairman for the Park Ridge Elks. He has a quick thing to say. And Kathy's going to come up and go a little bit over resilient children for you. All right? Thank you so much, everybody, for your patience.
Wow, what an amazing afternoon. Exalted Ruler Ken, Cheryl, Uriel, this has been an amazing afternoon, and I appreciate you sharing all your stories. I'm the drug awareness chairman for the North District, which consists of Pompton Lakes, West Milford, Mahwah, Oakland, Wayne, Passaic Valley, and finally Park Ridge, and the sister lodge, Westwood Lodge, right down the street. I recently celebrated my 30th year of being a member of this great organization. What we do is, once a year we have a walkout on drugs. Okay, last year we raised $3,000, which sent another 10 kids to the peer leadership conference. The walkout this year will be on April 28th. It'll be at Westvale Park in Westwood. It's 3 miles away. Okay, I cordially invite everyone that spoke today. If you would like to participate that morning, it would be great. It's a Sunday morning. The registration is at 10 a.m. The walkout will begin at 11, and then we go back to Westwood Lodge for the presentations. Among those speaking will be a counselor from Newbridge Medical Center. We'll have the Bergen County Police there, the SWAT team. We'll have the K-9 unit once again. You can pet the dog. And we'll have a bunch of other speakers. And once again, those are some stories I heard this afternoon from everyone. So there's registration forms over on the table. Okay, there's a flyer with all the information on it. And I hope to see you all there. It's a really good morning. And once again, Park Ridge, you did an outstanding job with this. And at the end of this, if you notice the tent, okay, it's got a starfish, okay, that's the drug awareness logo. And Cheryl will read a little bit of a story at the end of this afternoon, and that's the meaning of the starfish. Thank you very much.
Okay, Kathy, come on up.
Good afternoon. Thank you for hanging around.
My name is Kathy Viola, and I come from the Center for Alcohol and Drug Resources, which is a prevention agency that in the fall will be celebrating its 40th year. We're a program of Children's Aid and Family Services, which was the state's first adoption and foster care agency, and this year is celebrating 120 years of service to New Jersey. But I'm coming to you today to end with a message of hope. You've heard a lot of statistics, but there have been some resounding themes that have come through. Some words that have come up like resilience. We need to care. There's been conversations about communication. So I'd like to give you some tools so that every one of you in the audience can be a part of creating awareness and helping our youth and our adults that are in this cycle of substance use disorder. But the first thing is resiliency. And what is resiliency? Resiliency is the ability to be able to bounce back when something doesn't go your way. And we can all teach resiliency. As parents and grandparents, you have all taught young people resiliency. And the first lesson you taught it was when they fell down and skinned their knees, and you said to them, dust it off and keep moving. Hopefully that was not the last time you taught them resiliency, okay? So I'm going to base this on the Search Institute's 40 developmental assets, and on your table, on your seats, I spread around a lot of pamphlets of resources. But what are the developmental assets and why are they important? Well, they're the traits that studies have shown through many years of research that we all have assets, and if we can have these 40 developmental assets, we can raise our youth to be successful adults in this world. We have external assets and we have internal assets. The external assets are where you really come in, knowing the people in your neighborhood. Young people need to be surrounded by people who care for them, appreciate them and their skills, and accept them for who they are. It comes from our family, our first levels of love and support. But sometimes we assume that our family members know we love them, but we need to tell them, okay? Positive family communication. Oftentimes we communicate, but I am the world's best optimist. So I like to frame everything in a positive message. So when we communicate with them, we want to use positive words. Parents, grandparents, neighbors can have an influence on a young person's life. Did you know that if you know the children in your neighborhood and you say hello to them and you call them by name, you become an asset to them? They know that you know that they matter. You know that they exist. Okay? Other assets that we want to help the children with are setting boundaries. Boundaries are important for our children. Boundaries provide a safety net for our children. There are boundaries in our family. When you set rules, let children know your expectations. Let them know that your expectation is that they won't use alcohol before the legal age of 21. When we set those expectations, it doesn't totally eliminate their use, but it may delay the onset of use. It may lower the usage, okay? And they know that school has rules and boundaries. Let them know that you have rules and boundaries. My Kathy Viola theory of parenting is that we provide a rubber band of safety for our children. And at different phases, developmentally, they are going to try to stretch this Band-Aid, this rubber band, to a point of breakage. And it's our job to help them stay within this rubber band of safety. Boundaries provide safety for children. They like to know the rules. Also, model good behavior. Walt Disney used to say, never worry that our children are watching us. Be aware that our children are always watching us. So model the behavior as friends, as family, as neighbors and parents that you want. Okay? Empower them. A lot of times young people do not think that adults believe in them or understand in them or know that they have capabilities and can do a lot more. Challenge them to rise to situations. Let them know that you believe in them, okay? Help them find structured use of their time. They used to say, I know my grandmother used to say, free time is the devil's advocate, okay? But sometimes we structure our world so much that children don't know what to do in free time. So help them find it.
I know I grew up in the Midwest, and we had 2 miles of woods behind my house. And we were free. We were kind of like she said, like Holly Shapezi said this morning, a little bit feral. We would run around, you had to be home when the street lights came on. But you knew who the problems were, and you knew how, the problem children. You knew how to get through situations. So we need to help our children learn problem solving. And one of the best ways to do that is to not solve everything for them. Let them struggle a little bit. Let them find their way. And then help them debrief. Help them understand making decisions where it could have gone better. And parenting doesn't come with a solid rule book. There's no one size fits all for parenting. A lot of it we do by the seat of our pants. It's trial and error. And when we make a mistake, model it for our children that this is the mistake we made. This is what I could have done better. And it helps them learn that everyone makes mistakes. We can come back from mistakes. We can be resilient, and we can make this right. In your packet of information, there's a couple of pages in here that have strengths. A lot of time, young people don't have any vocabulary to learn their strengths. Help them find their strengths. Maybe you want to look at one of these on your own and see what strengths you have. On the other side are ways to have communications with young people about them so that we can help them build their strengths. We want to help them learn how to handle social situations. Situations that are comfortable or easy. Situations that are not so comfortable are difficult. Help them find other ways of handling this without using alternate substances. Okay? And I'm going quickly here because I know we're a little over time. But one of the best things that you can do is open the lines of communication. Talk to children. I have a positive speaker that was a PhD professor and the school counselor at Phillips Exeter, and anytime I have the opportunity to hear him speak, I follow him. And he said one of the best things that we can learn as parents and grandparents and others that are talking to young people is, first of all, talk to them on their time schedule, not ours. Because if a child is willing to talk to you, that's the time you need to talk to them. Maybe not if the kitchen stove is on fire. It's okay to say, I can't talk to you right now, I'll talk to you in 5 minutes. But if you say to them that you're going to talk to them in 5 minutes, honor the 5 minutes. Maybe you can stretch it to 7, but don't stretch it to 2 hours, okay? Because they've moved on. So talk to your children when they're ready to talk to you. Find the time and make that. Because if we shut them down now, we could shut them down forever. If they hit that wall enough, they will stop talking to us. Okay? The other thing is when they're talking to you, he said we should all have embroidered on the inside of our eyelids, tattooed there, why am I speaking? Because oftentimes we want to interject our wisdom into their world, and our wisdom may not fit their world. So when they're speaking, let them speak. Listen to them. Encourage them. And one of the best ways you can say, instead of saying, what happened? Or what did you do? Talk to them, and when they're talking, say 3 magic words. Tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more. Okay? Your inflection can matter. But young people want to know that you're there. You can be the trusted adult in your world, in your child's world, your grandchild's world, your neighbor's child's world, someone that you know in your neighborhood. You can be their trusted adult, and having that can be the difference and help make our children resilient. Do I have a magic wand? Can I end this substance use disorder and this epidemic? No, but we can all take baby steps to make it better, and we can all start to be part of the solution and help to make it go. So in your handout, there's a lot of things. The 40 developmental assets are there for you to look at. They're wonderful. They're proven over 30 years of research that they work. So know the young people in your world. Talk to them. Help them make decisions. Offer advice, but offer advice with a very listening ear. There are 2 other techniques that I'd like to talk to you about very quickly and still get us out only a little bit late. And one of them is active listening. And active listening is something that we should all be practicing. And when we're active listening, what we do is we look at the person that's talking, We pay attention to them, we really listen, which for someone who likes to talk incessantly is a little difficult, okay? But the key to active listening is we'll repeat back what we heard them say. So if we heard them say, I heard you say that you had a really rough day at school today. What do you think we can do about this? How can I help you? What would you like from me? I heard you say, or I thought I heard you say, or I'm not sure I understand that, please explain it to me again, so that we can all start to use the same language and it lets them understand, okay? Active listening and reflective listening are two of the best tools that you can use. It lets them know that you're there, it lets them know that you care, and it helps them build resiliency and find ways to solve issues that they're dealing with. So most of all, continue doing what you're doing. There is hope out there. We've heard some stories. There's some tragedies, but let's respect Kevin and Jackie and do our best to keep anyone else from entering that realm. And thank you very much for your time. Continue doing what you're doing. And the young people are our future. Let's help them. Let's let them know. And this is your hope. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody, for attending today. We really appreciate it. We hope you will take home something from this today. But before we end, I would like to have a moment of silence. Let's take a moment to remember those who have been lost to this horrible addiction, and for the families and friends who will be forever affected by their loss. Thank you. I just wanted to leave you with, besides thanking everybody so much, we can't thank you enough, I wanted to explain the starfish for our motto for the Elks program. It's called the starfish. It's a young girl was walking along the beach upon which thousands of starfish had been washed up on shore during a terrible storm. When she came to each starfish, she would pick it up, throw it back into the ocean, and people would just watch her with amazement. She'd been doing this for some time when a man approached her and said, "Little girl, why are you doing this? Look at this beach. There's so many. You can't save them all. You can't even begin to make a difference." The little girl seemed a little crushed and suddenly deflated, but after a few moments she bent down, picked up another starfish. She hurled it into the ocean as far as she could. Then she looked up at the man and she said, "Well, I just made a difference with that one." The man looked at the girl inquisitively and thought about what she had done. Inspired, he joined the little girl and started throwing starfish back into the sea. Soon others joined in, and all the starfish were saved. This is adapted from the Star Thrower from Lawrence C. Isley, and this is our motto, saving one at a time. Thank you, have a great day, and hopefully next year you'll be back and we'll have we're going to do it on a really cold, rainy day, so people will come out. All right, but thank you, everybody, for everything, and have a great day.
Hi, I'm Tina Valentine, and we're at the Elks Club here in Hartbridge, and I want to introduce Murray and Cheryl. We're talking about walkout on drugs today. We got a great event, and we wanted to get a little more information on it.
The Hartbridge Elks has their annual Walkout on Drugs program, and we just want the public to be informed. We try to give interesting information. We have recovering addicts. We have the prosecutor here. We have parents who have lost a child or a loved one in the family due to the opioid epidemic.
We'd like to bring it into the school system, so this way we can have a program. We have the peer leadership that we actually have students that go to Long Branch, and they get all this motivational speakers to make them have better choices and lead our future leaders.
To promote the future. And we just want to say congratulations, you did a great job today.
Thank
You
you.
had some canines in here.
We had the canines also, the mayors were here.
And
From the Triborough area, we had a representation from all the Triborough, from Flight Lockville and Front Ridge. We also would like to get into the borough and have a full parents' night with learning how to raise resilient children, and also to have what's hidden in plain sight, so you know what to look for in your kids' bedrooms. So it would be a wonderful program. We already went through it when we went to the peer leadership in February, and we would love to share it and be an alliance throughout the town and just make everybody join together to save one at a time.
Yes, and keep aware of the programs that are coming up. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for
Thank
filming
you
us.
very much.
Now, and we would like to talk to Officer Santangelo. Thank you. Gave us a great program. We're up presenting today, and I just wanted to ask you if you had anything else, any other plans for the future for this program?
Definitely. So I'm Officer Santangelo. I've been with DARE for the last 3 years. I've been officer with the Park Ridge Police Department for the last 5 years. We do have a lot of events coming up in town. Actually, tonight we do have our Devils hockey night for the 5th graders. So we like to do events every year after the graduation. We just did have Eastbrook, Westridge, and OLM graduate from our 5th grade program, which is a 10-week curriculum, where we basically go over safe and responsible decisions, a little bit about alcohol and tobacco. This year we actually do have, it's our 6th annual golf outing. It's on May 6th, so if you would like to golf or sponsor our event, you can definitely reach me on my Park Ridge Police Department email.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for coming out. This program.
Thank you for having me.
Help for the community. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi, how are you? I'm Nancy LeBove. I'm the founder and director of a program called Alumni in Recovery. I'm here with 2 of the parent members. This is Jean, Nancy, and they both have lost their children to addiction. Jean's son Michael, Nancy's son Kevin. We are basically just volunteers, the bereaved parent community combined with young people in recovery. We talk to the public regularly, as often as we can, and we encourage the public to get involved in these conversations that we hold in public forums. Our next one will be most likely at Old Tapan, Charles DeWolf Middle School in Old Tapan on the 24th of April at 7 p.m. You're welcome to attend, anybody that would like to. We want to encourage these discussions on a regular basis so everybody can be part of the solution in the opioid crisis in our country. We can make a difference, but we all have to do it together. Do you have anything to say?
No, nothing.
So,
No, we're the bereaved parents that come out, and we're part of the, I'm the co-chair for the parent program, and we try to get into schools and speak to the parents on a regular basis and let them know what happened to our children and, any resources available to them to help them along the way.
Hi, this is Tina Valentine, and I'm here with the Park Ridge Police Chief, Madden.
Joseph Madden.
Thank you. And we're here at the Walkout on Drugs event at the Elks Club. Just wanted to say hello and thank you for your service for Park Ridge for all these years. And what do you think about this event today in a couple of years?
I think that I have to give the Elks a lot of credit because they're actually getting out and trying to educate and make people aware of this horrible opioid epidemic that's affecting not only our county and our state, but the whole nation. I think today is another example of the police, the community leaders, some political leaders, just collaborating to help educate not only our youth but also our parents about the dangers of opioid addiction and also identifying some coping skills for our children so they hopefully will not fall victim to this horrible disease.
Yes, it's nice to see the community come out and support it. It's a very important topic and so many communities are affected by it.
Yes.
It's scary. But I hear you have canines coming. Is that true?
Yes, we have canines from the county sheriff. They have multiple canines coming to give a demonstration.
Great.
Yeah, should be interesting.
Yeah, it's always nice to have the animals, they do so much. And they're skilled and trained in this type of
Yes,
work.
they're excellent.
Great.
It's very impressive. They should put on a good show later today.
Well, thank you for talking to us today, and
You're welcome.
we're looking forward to the event.
Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.